Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex topics and extract the most important insights for you. Today, we're plunging into the fascinating and really rapidly evolving world of modern air warfare. We're going to explore how the very definition of air superiority has shifted and what that means for global military strategy, going forward.
Indeed, yeah, we're seeing a pretty radical transformation in how battles are fought in the air. This deep dive, we're focusing on two distinct, yet I think interconnected areas. First, there's this intense, ongoing battle for dominance at low altitudes using, thousands of drones. And second, a really significant development in high-altitude combat capabilities. We'll look at the specific adaptations being made by both sides in the conflict in Ukraine, and crucially, what these developments suggest for the future of warfare worldwide.
Okay, let's unpack this. For decades, when we thought of air superiority, it was, fighter jets, bombers, high above, owning the sky, essentially. But our understanding of this core military concept has radically shifted. What's driving this change?
That's right. The most significant advance we're observing really in military tech and tactics is this struggle for air superiority over the immediate battlefield. And it's happening using an increasing number and variety of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. This battle is unfolding predominantly at what are called low altitudes, that's the airspace generally speaking, between ground forces and traditional piloted aircraft flying thousands of meters higher. It's a completely different sphere of conflict.
A different sphere, okay. So can you paint a clearer picture? What defines these low altitude engagements? What kinds of systems are actually clashing down there?
It's truly a constant, grueling fight for supremacy. Down there, you see small commercial drones, for instance, often equipped with first-person view or FPV systems. These let operators basically fly from the drone's perspective, making them incredibly nimble, precise for both recon and dropping small explosives. And against them, you have this whole suite of anti-drone measures. I mean, everything from traditional machine gun fire right up to sophisticated electronic jamming and specialized drone interceptors. It's a struggle that honestly could determine the outcome of not just individual battles, but potentially the entire conflict in Ukraine.
And initially, Ukraine seemed to have a noticeable edge, right, in this drone warfare space. How did that come about?
They did, yeah. We saw a crucial breakthrough, I'd say, in early 2024. After Ukrainian forces were pushed out of Avdiivka, partly because of a really severe shortage of artillery ammo, they realized they needed a new approach, a systemic approach to drone warfare. So Kyiv responded by creating the Unmanned Systems Forces as a new separate branch of their armed forces. The goal was basically to unify their previously scattered and, frankly, often improvised drone units. That included many private independent drone operator companies too. These were rapidly reorganized into proper military structures, battalions, regiments, and more recently, even large brigades.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a pretty significant organizational shift. What was the actual impact, the tangible effect of this new structure and, expanded drone use?
Oh, the impact was profound. By rapidly scaling up the use of various drone types for observation and for strikes, the Ukrainian military developed this multi-layered defense system. It extended several kilometers deep from the front line, and this drone presence was integrated on the ground with defensive positions, fortifications, infantry, artillery, anti-personnel mines, the works. By 2024, this gave Ukraine a significant advantage, really, in both the quality and quantity of drones. And this allowed their forces to inflict pretty substantial losses, particularly during Russian offensive operations in southern Donetsk last autumn. Just to give you an idea, drone supplies to Ukraine increased by, 19 times in 2024? And by November of that year, drones accounted for something like 80% of Russian frontline losses. That's a staggering figure.
80%. It really highlights the incredible speed of adaptation in modern war. But while Ukraine gained this initial edge, military operations always demand a response, don't they? How did Russia begin to counter this drone advantage?
Indeed. Yeah, Russia wasn't just standing still. They began to catch up significantly earlier this year. When I spent some time with Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines down in southern Donbass earlier this month, I kept hearing them mention Rubicon. This is the short name for Russia's Rubicon Center for Advanced Unmanned Technologies. It was established in August 2024 by order of the Minister of Defense, Andrei Belousov. And it really represents the core of Russia's new, more systemic approach to drone warfare. They're moving beyond just ad hoc responses now.
Okay, Russia's Rubicon Center sounds like a serious countermove. From your observations, what specific tactics or technologies are making their approach so effective? and, so dangerous for Ukrainian forces?
Well, its danger lies in its methodical approach. They're trying to neutralize Ukraine's drone advantages systematically. This isn't just about shooting down drones. It's a comprehensive strategy.
Yeah.
It includes intercepting Ukrainian drones, yes, but also destroying their ground operator teams, a critical element, and, crucially, cutting their supply lines. What's also really fascinating, technologically, is their introduction of fiber optic controlled drones. These systems communicate using these ultra-thin, almost invisible cables several kilometers long, instead of radio frequencies, which are vulnerable to jamming. This makes them essentially invulnerable to the electronic jamming that Ukraine successfully used during its 2024 incursion into Russia's Kursk region. Now, they are heavier and slower than conventional drones, these fiber optic ones, but they maintain stable control, even in really intense electronic warfare environments. That makes them incredibly difficult to stop.
That is a clever way to bypass jamming. So what are the broader implications then? If Moscow's new approach allows its forces to establish this kind of low-altitude superiority across the entire front, what happens?
Well, if Russia achieves this, it would severely limit Ukraine's ability to maneuver effectively on the battlefield. That's the first major impact. The pervasive threat of Russian drones could also suppress Ukrainian artillery, potentially undermining the current, proximate equality of artillery forces we see in some areas. And most critically, this newfound air superiority at low altitudes could lead to significantly higher casualties among Ukrainian service members. That would worsen Ukraine's already considerable personnel shortage. It's a critical vulnerability for them, no doubt.
But Ukraine has shown this remarkable ability to adapt throughout the conflict. Are they standing still now? What's their plan to counter this accelerating Russian advantage?
Oh, they are definitely adapting again. Under their new commander, Major Robert Brody, the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces have kicked off a 100-day reform plan. This plan defines the next phase of Ukraine's drone technology development. The aim is for a more effective integrated defense. This includes things like advanced electronic warfare, better intelligence gathering, anti-drone systems, remote mining capabilities, mobile radar stations, and drone interceptors, all operating simultaneously, hopefully. And crucially, the plan emphasizes more coordinated training and, very importantly, improved supply chains. They need to ensure the whole defense system functions cohesively under intense combat conditions.
This battle for low altitudes, it really sounds like it's entering a truly decisive phase, almost like a separate ground-level air war happening beneath the traditional one.
It absolutely is. Over the coming months, Russia will undoubtedly try to exhaust Ukrainian forces and seize as much territory as possible, leveraging this potential advantage. Ukraine's current defense system, while highly innovative, was really designed for a different phase of the conflict, a time when its drone advantage was much more pronounced. Russia's systematic approach, this thing exemplified by units like Rubicon, threatens to neutralize those advantages entirely. The inability to control this low-altitude zone jeopardizes Ukraine's entire defensive architecture. It's that serious. If Russia establishes decisive low-altitude superiority, Ukraine faces the prospect of cascading defensive failures across multiple front sections. That's a truly dire scenario.
So as this drone war redefines low-altitude combat, we can't forget the higher skies. You mentioned developments there, too. Traditional air power is also undergoing a quiet but significant evolution. What's happening up there?
Right. While the low-altitude drone battle rages, something significant is happening higher up. The Russian aerospace forces have confirmed the adoption of the R-77M active radar-guided air-to-air missile. Now, this isn't just another weapon, it's a new generation missile. Its direct counterpart to China's PL-15 and America's AM-120D, which means it's now in the top tier of long-range air-to-air missiles globally. It has a stated range of approximately 200 kilometers.
200 kilometers. Why is this new missile so noteworthy beyond its range? What specific gap does it fill for Russia?
Well, for over 10 years, maybe more, Russia's fighter units were at a significant disadvantage compared to American, Chinese, and even some European counterparts. They were relying on the older R-77-1, which only has a range of about 110 kilometers. And that missile itself only entered service in 2014, which was already roughly a decade behind the leading foreign competitors at the time. The R-77M's arrival, also about a decade after its foreign equivalents like the AM-120D came into wider use, largely stems from, frankly, limited investment in tactical combat aviation by Russia's Ministry of Defense after the Cold War. So this missile isn't just an upgrade. You could see it as Russia's scramble to close a decade-long capability gap in air-to-air missile technology. It's a direct consequence of that historical underinvestment.
Okay, so it's playing catch-up, but how effective is it, technically? What makes its technology so impactful compared to the older stuff?
Its effectiveness really lies in its advanced seeker head. It features an active electronically scanned array, or a ESAR, radar.
I see, right.
Exactly. This significantly improves its resistance to jamming, which is crucial, and increases its target acquisition range. The AEEA supposedly provides a fuller, wider-angle target image too, making evasion much harder for enemy aircraft. It also boasts a new dual-mode engine, which enhances its kinematic performance, how fast and far it can fly and maneuver. Taken together, these improvements are genuinely revolutionary for the combat potential of aircraft like the Su-35, which is currently the backbone of Russia's fighter fleet.
And I understand this new missile, the R-77M, it's also designed with future aircraft in mind.
Correct. Yeah, if you look at it, the R-77M looks different from its predecessors. It has shortened tail fins and control surfaces. This design change is crucial for it to be housed inside the internal weapon bays of the new fifth-generation Su-57 fighter, and presumably any future stealth fighters or interceptors Russia might develop down the line. So it shows they're thinking long-term, planning for integration, despite their current challenges.
It's interesting how certain conflicts or geopolitical pressures seem to accelerate technological adoption. Why do you think the R-77 is being pushed into service now with such apparent urgency?
Well, the ongoing combat in the Ukrainian theater is certainly a major factor, but also the significant escalation of tensions with NATO countries in Eastern Europe, the Arctic, the Pacific region, that's all likely accelerated the R-77M's adoption after years of substantial delays. You have to remember, Russia lags significantly behind China and the U.S. in adopting fifth-generation fighters. For context, their first regiment of these advanced jets, the Su-57s, was formed only in 2024. Whereas, Soviet Air Force planning back in the day aimed to reach this milestone by 2001.
Wow, quite a delay.
A huge delay. So this missile, the R-77M, is crucial in preventing Russian fighter units from becoming effectively obsolete, especially with NATO's expanding fleet of fifth-generation fighters like the F-35. It's a critical tool for them to maintain some sort of competitive edge.
So what impact will the R-77M actually have, both on the battlefield, perhaps in Ukraine, and also on the global strategic stage?
Well, the expectation is that the R-77M will enable fighters like the Su-35S and the Su-30SM, which really form the backbone of the Russian fleet right now, to more effectively counter Western air forces and their allies. It will also likely extend the significant advantage Russian fighter units already possess in the Ukrainian theater, making it even more dangerous for Ukrainian aircraft. Some analysts, like Douglas Berry, who's a senior research fellow for military aerospace at ISA, suggest there's a high probability these missiles are already undergoing combat testing in Ukraine.
Right.
Potentially. He believes they will noticeably increase range and improve seeker performance and countermeasure resistance compared to the older Russian air-to-air missiles. Now, a really critical point here, though, is funding. The scale of funding from Russia's Ministry of Defense for actually equipping frontline units. Historically, even when they had a more modest fighter fleet than China or the U.S., funding for air-to-air missile procurement after the collapse of the USSR was consistently limited, very limited. For example, the basic R-77 version, the predecessor, was never actually procured in significant numbers domestically, even though it was being produced for export from the mid-90s.
Interesting.
Yeah, and furthermore, because procurements of the R-77-1 were also quite meager, Russian fighters still widely use its Cold War predecessor, the R-27E. You still see those. However, the significantly more serious security challenges Russia perceives today probably increase the likelihood that the R-77M will fully replace its predecessors in production this time. It feels less like a luxury and more like a necessity for them now.
Okay, so we have this incredibly intense, rapidly evolving low-altitude drone war. And at the same time, these new critical high-altitude missile capabilities emerging for Russia. How do these two distinct realms connect? I mean, what does it all mean for the future of air combat doctrine globally?
Yeah, this is where it gets really profound, I think. It leads us to a truly significant shift in military thinking. The new capabilities being developed primarily by Ukraine initially, and now with some delay by Russia, have accelerated a transition away from the idea of surgical precision strikes, which really dominated Western military thought since the 1990s Gulf War era, to something military analysts are now calling mass precision. And that's the ability to deliver precise strikes but at an unprecedented scale, using inexpensive, often disposable systems.
Mass precision. So instead of one incredibly expensive cruise missile or smart bomb, you're talking about potentially thousands of cheap, relatively simple drones operating together. That certainly sounds revolutionary. Can you elaborate a bit on how that fundamentally shifts the traditional calculus, the economics of air combat?
Precisely. Modern low-altitude warfare uses these swarms of inexpensive drones that can achieve significant tactical results through sheer quantity and coordinated action. It's a cost reduction revolution, frankly, that completely changes traditional arms economics. Ukraine alone is reportedly launching thousands of drones every month. This creates what military theorists are calling the disposable mass effect. The essence of this new approach isn't about the capabilities of individual, exquisite, expensive platforms. It's about the combined combat power you get by simultaneously deploying hundreds, and soon maybe thousands, of these good enough systems across the battlefield, all while the piloted aircraft continue to operate, doing different things at higher altitudes. This fundamentally changes the arithmetic of air combat, from scarce, highly valuable resources that you husband carefully, to abundant, almost disposable means of engagement.
That's a fascinating concept, the decoupling of altitude from control. It suggests that air superiority, as we traditionally understood it with piloted aircraft high up, no longer guarantees control over the skies closer to the ground. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. This cheap, mass precision capability has effectively decoupled low altitudes from high altitudes. Consider this. A modern fighter jet, like an F-35 or Su-35, can easily shoot down a traditional helicopter, no problem. But that same fighter cannot realistically be used to hunt swarms of small unmanned aerial vehicles that are targeting individual artillery pieces or tanks on the ground. It's just not designed for that. The sheer quantity of small drone platforms operating at low altitudes would quickly deplete the expensive weapon systems of even the most advanced piloted aircraft.
So our modern fighters, optimized for beyond visual range combat with powerful, expensive missiles, are largely ineffective, or at least inefficient, against these multiplying drone swarms. It creates this massive cost asymmetry problem.
You've absolutely hit on the core issue there. Modern fighters equipped with sophisticated air-to-air missiles cannot economically engage dozens, maybe hundreds, of inexpensive drones simultaneously. This creates what military analysts call a cost asymmetry, where defending against this threat with existing traditional systems becomes prohibitively expensive. You just can't afford to shoot down $500 drones with $1 million missiles. And similarly, sophisticated radar systems designed to detect large aircraft at long range become tactically almost useless against these small drones. They have minimal radar signatures, they operate close to the ground clutter, often amidst heavy radio jamming. These big radars are essentially blind to this new threat, certainly at scale.
This sounds like it challenges almost every assumption about air defense, military spending, force structure, everything. What are the ultimate implications for military doctrine globally, especially for Western militaries that have invested so heavily in high-end platforms?
Well, this entire development fundamentally challenges traditional Western air defense concepts. It demands entirely new doctrinal approaches to how we think about and control airspace in military operations. The very pillars of Western air power, these expensive, technologically superior aircraft and long-range precision munitions, are being effectively circumvented, bypassed at that low-altitude layer. We're going to need to see, and are starting to see, new investment in counter-drone systems, advanced electronic warfare specifically for this threat, and maybe even new types of air assets designed specifically for this low-altitude kind of dirty fight. Armed forces worldwide really must closely monitor what's happening on the battlefield in Ukraine, not just to keep up with the latest technologies and tactics, but to truly understand this fundamental shift in the way war is waged. The survival of Ukraine may well depend on winning this competition, this race that most military analysts couldn't have even conceived of just a few years ago. And for everyone else, it's a vital, urgent lesson in the evolving nature of global conflict. This new paradigm forces us all to ask, how do you deter or defeat a mass precision attack when the individual units are disposable and the sheer volume just overwhelms traditional defenses? It's a tough question.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.